sunshine.
Alright, what is up, guys? Welcome to Coffee Thoughts, episode 49. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that you're having a good week so far. So a couple updates before I get into the episode. So number one, the SayWeCanFly smartphone app is now live on the Android Google Play Store, and it should be up on the iTunes App Store within the next couple days, maybe even by the time you watch this. So if you'd like to download the app, there's a link below, or you can just search it on the app stores, whatever. And please make sure if you do download it that you turn push notifications on, so I can send you notifications right to your phone, let you know about new stuff. And I also have a message inbox on there that if you don't feel comfortable sending me a voicemail, which you can do by going to my website, SayWeCanFly.net, then you can message me on my app, and I will do everything I can to get back to you within 1 to 3 days. That's my standard right now. But if you can, please send me a voicemail if you need advice, if you want to talk, if you want to share something. I have a voicemail inbox, which I check every single day. So there's also a link below. So I think there's that, and then I'm also finishing up my EP, and it's coming together. But the third thing I want to tell you guys is that last week I did an episode on well-being. So I kind of talked a little bit about it, but after making that episode, I started writing a book, and I've already written a massive chunk of it. I didn't know it was going to happen. I just sat down to try to write, kind of write like a brief like PDF of like increasing your well-being, and I ended up just writing like a ton. So I'm putting together a book that's basically going to be everything that I have learned in my life, some philosophy stuff, some psychology stuff, some spirituality stuff, some practical things, just kind of everything and every possible topic that I can dive into in a step-by-step manner that can help you make your life better and can help you increase your well-being, because that's ultimately what I want, and just get rid of your anxiety, because I know all of us have that ability. It's just sometimes is the way that you're looking at things that hinders you from doing that. So that's something I'm working on, and hope to have out in the next month. I'm trying to do in the next couple weeks, but it'll be a free download, and I'm gonna make physical copies. If anybody wants to buy one of those, I'll sign them and whatever. But I just want it to be a free download for anybody who wants it. So all right, yeah, let's get into the episode. And this is something that I'd like to talk about because of a lot of the voicemails I've been getting recently, just about kind of things that people are still going through, and a lot of them were things that people were experiencing at home, or that they had experienced in their childhood that were really just like causing them to see themselves in a certain way, or have a hard time with self-image and with just moving forward and progressing. So I would like to talk a little bit about how your childhood affects you now, because I think, at least for me in my life, from my experience, it's something that I didn't realize for a long time. And I may have touched on this in certain episodes, but I think it's a good step in potentially fixing some of the self-image issues that you might have, or some of the anxieties you might have, or some of the habits that you have that you don't know why you have, or you react to things a certain way but you really don't feel that way, and it's just kind of an automatic thing that happens. And I'm speaking on all of this completely from experience, and I know that some of you guys may deal with this. So I think to start, it's first of all, there's probably some things, unless you're in a very good place, which is amazing, and I'm happy for you and I want that, but there's likely some things about yourself that you'd like to change, or that you don't like. And I think there's a difference between things that if you're acting a certain way and that you shouldn't be, and you want to change that. There's a difference between something like that and I hate the way I look. There's a difference. So I'm talking about both of those, but I just kind of want you to start to separate those things a little bit. It's okay, the things that you should change because you're going to be happier and you're going to be in a better place, or the things that you just don't like about yourself for whatever reason. You have a bad self-image. So I'd like you to start to kind of think about those things. So I think a lot of times what stops us from making changes is that we don't really ask ourselves where did the problem come from? Where is it coming from in the first place? Because if you don't do that and understand the kind of fundamental foundation of the problem, it's really hard to eliminate it. Because yeah, you can make these kind of changes, or you can talk to yourself more positively, but it's you still don't really address the underlying issue. So and again, any of this stuff, like I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a scientist, like I'm not approaching this from like the scientific perspective. This is really just experience and like things that I've learned and articulating it in my own way. I just like want to put that out there. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I think it's still helpful to just talk about. So I think one of the things you can do is, like, let's just say, like for me, I'll just kind of give examples from my experience, and this is stuff that I've talked about before. I've struggled for a very long time in my life, up till recently, with just feeling, number one, afraid of being by myself, afraid of people leaving my life, afraid of losing people, and also feeling like I'm not good enough, and feeling like I am inferior. And so these are two big things that I've struggled with a lot in my life, and have caused just hell for me in a lot of different ways, and just really fucked with my well-being, and really fucked with my life in general. So these are two things that for a long time I've just felt, and I never really asked myself like why. You know, I never really took the time to be like, okay, like why, like I want to fix these things, but why do I feel them in the first place, right? And so what I kind of started to do, and I would say I probably started to do this in December, and last December and January, was I started to do a lot of, you know, kind of self-inquiry and self-reflection, and be like, okay, there's no like logical reason that I feel this way. It's like I think I've done pretty well in my life. Like I've built a career that I'm happy with. I have like amazing people in my life. I have amazing people who follow me and send me messages, and like I get to make music, and I get to tour, and I get to, you know, just create. And it's like, so why do I feel this way? Because it's like I could understand it if I was doing nothing with my life, and, you know, doing something I hated every day, and, you know, didn't have a good living situation or whatever. Like I can understand feeling inferior or feeling shitty about myself, you know, or feeling insecure, but it's like it doesn't make sense because I've worked so hard to build this thing that like, and this life that I want for myself, you know. So I started to kind of think like, okay, like I really need to go back and figure out where this came from, because otherwise I'm never going to understand. And essentially kind of just what I realized, which is something that I probably thought about before, and it's a very simple thing, but it's like, well, you know, when I was a kid, I was used to people leaving my life all the time. I was used to my parents, you know, leaving and never knowing if they were coming back, or like never knowing if they were going to be together. You know, I lost my grandfather when I was like 12, and he was like one of my best friends. So and like one of the people that like helped get me through a lot of the bad times. So like I remember I lost him, and I was just fucking lost. And just my whole kind of foundation when I was younger was very like brittle. You know, my whole family situation, everything was very just, it wasn't secure. Like it was very kind of like all over the place, and I just never felt that sense of like security that I think probably a lot of people don't feel these days, at least. I rarely meet people now that have like a normal family situation. I don't even know what that is anymore, really. But you know, so I was just thinking, okay, like I was constantly feeling that anxiety of like people leaving and it being my fault somehow, and I never felt like I was good enough, because no matter what I would try to do, I could never fix it. Like I could never change it. I could never, I remember literally trying like hard. I would do things. I would make crafts. I would like just like try to make something to give them, like just try to like do what I could to fix it, right? And I could never do it. So I think subconsciously I started to feel like it was my fault. And then along with that, like I didn't have, I think because I was so depressed when I was at home, I didn't know how to talk to people. I was always quiet. I was always shy. Always had this anxiety of like what people were thinking, because I was just hyper aware of like what people were thinking. And you know, because I would be like, well, maybe, like I would just remember I would sit there and be like, well, maybe like my parents are gonna work it out this time, and I'd just be hyper aware of how they were acting, what they were saying to each other, and this kind of thing. So I just kind of had this ingrained like hyper awareness of what people were saying and thinking. So I was always overanalyzing everything, which kind of led me to not, you know, not be able to act in like social situations for a very long time in my life, and always kind of assuming that people didn't like me, and you know, people weren't going to stick around because I wasn't good enough, or they didn't care. So I just had all these like really intense subconscious kind of beliefs that I've had my whole life. And again, I just want to say, this is nothing against my parents and my family. Like I fucking love them. It's a completely different situation now. Like I have a relationship with everybody, and it's not about that. I think it's important to share these experiences, because I think a lot of people can probably relate in their own ways. But anyway, so kind of what what I realized was just like, I have this automatic response that was generated when I was very, psychologically vulnerable, and I was still in the process of being wired. And it's like, when you're wired at that stage of your life to think a certain thing or feel a certain thing or view something a certain way, it's like the reason that I'd say 90% of people have the religion they have is because that's what they were wired to believe when they're young. It's like, it's kind of fucked up because a child is like a blank slate, and you as the caretaker have the ability to wire it any way that you'd like. And that's a terrifying responsibility, because mistakes that you make are going to stay with that child forever, unless they start to go back and untangle the wires, which is very hard work. But it's like, that's again, is like a lot of the reason that religion is passed on, is because it's that wiring phase where it's like you're wired a certain way to see the world a certain way, and that's that. And if you want to change it, that's something you have to do completely on your own. So I started to just realize that, and pretty much realize, because a lot of times, like, I would feel that way, about people in my life or situations, and I'd be like, I don't really feel this way. I'm not actually like afraid of anything. I don't really care. Like, it's just this automatic, really overpowering kind of response that happens. I think what I ultimately kind of realized was like, that's where it came from. And the moment I truly realized that, I didn't need it anymore, because I realized I didn't generate that. That was generated, as a byproduct of my environment when I was young, and continuous things that happened in my life. And I just decided that shit does not serve me anymore. It's done nothing good for me. There's no place for it in my life, and that was that. And it's something that's maybe easier said than done, but I think, for me at least, once I really went back and analyzed, why do I feel the way that I feel now in my current reality when I don't actually feel this way, it must be something very deep that needs attention. Because it's like, once you understand a problem, it kind of no longer becomes a problem. Once you understand the source of it, it's like you kind of transcend it. So I guess kind of what I'm saying is, like, before you start to, even if it's like things with like the way you see yourself, like, you need to think back of like how you were treated when you were a kid, or like how you were made to feel when you were young, because that shit will stick with you forever. And you have to start to untangle that, because what you'll start to realize is that you don't actually see yourself that way. You don't actually want to feel that way about yourself. It's just this constant inner dialogue that was created years and years and years ago, and is still there. And the only way that you're going to start to eliminate it is to face it, and to begin to detach from it. Because when you realize it's not something that you want, it's not something that you're generating, it's not something that serves you, it's like you start to detach from it. So I just think it's such a powerful idea when you start to become more mindful and aware of these things. And that only happens by taking the time to reflect and go deep. When you start to do that, what starts to happen is, like, there's this awareness that you have, that you already know that there's a problem. Like, you already have this feeling that there's a problem, but you're still really attached to it, and it still has control over you. But the more you start to look at it, right, from a different angle, or just start to really think about it, you start to kind of broaden your awareness of it, and you start to see it as something that is not you. It's not really you, and you start to kind of be able to stare at it. So it's like, anytime it starts acting up and being a little bitch, like, you can actually see it doing that, right? So you actually start to, like, it's the same thing as like someone trying to steal your wallet. It's like, if you're turned around completely and you leave your wallet on a table behind you, someone can steal it, and you turn around and it's gone before you know it. But it's like, you turn around a little bit, you see it with your peripherals when someone tries to steal it. You might not catch them the first time, but eventually you're going to be spun around the entire way, directly facing them. So it's like, they're not even, like, if they come up to try to steal your wallet, you're going to be like, yo, like, what the fuck are you doing? And you're going to see that they're trying to do something that's going to harm you. So I really just think it's the same way with your emotions. It's the same thing with different aspects of yourself. And I think it's really, really important to start to reflect on those things and detach from them. Because when you do that, you start to notice this inner dialogue, and you start to question it more. It's like, man, like, I actually love myself. I really, there's things about my life that I really love, and it's like this negative inner dialogue that stemmed from events, in the past. It doesn't serve me anymore. It's not going to make my present moment any better. It's not going to make my future any better. The future as a concept, which I think the future is always going to be a concept, but it's like future, let's just, in terms that we can understand, like future present moments, so you in 10 years is going to be somewhat determined by your current present moment and all the moments leading up to that and the decisions you make and what, you know, how you choose to live your life. So it's like, if you want to you know, make sure that your present moments from here on out are better and good, you do need to deal with those things, and you do need to start to question them and start to kind of go back. And it can be painful, man. Like, it's not something that you want to do. It's like, you don't want to go back and relive all that shit, but you have to sometimes. And I think too, it's like, if there's things that you just don't understand about your childhood or about what happened, like, and you feel like you need to talk to your parents about them, do it. Have the courage to do that, because it will help immensely. I remember there's something recently that I really had to ask about, and I was like, you know, I don't fully understand what happened here, and I'd like to understand. And when I did, and we had a conversation, I was able to just, you know, go. I was able to move on. I was able to be like, okay, all right, that's that, because I was no longer like thinking about it or wondering about it. It was just like, you know, I was able to make peace with it. So I think that's kind of the key. But I just want you guys to realize, guys, like, the way you feel about yourself and about your life is not entirely your fault, and you start to be able to shift it and change it when you start to realize, like, you know, there are things that you probably need to deal with from your past, and that's not something that you decided. But if you do want to make your life better, you do need to take responsibility for that and start to do that as much as you can. Because once you make peace with the past, since, you know, it's like, it's not something that's going to hinder you anymore from being like, all right, like, what should I do today to make my life better? Or, you know, where do I want to be? It's like, you start to just kind of reshape things and see yourself differently. And I know, again, it's easier said than done, but I just think it's so important to at least do what you can, at least try. So I don't know, I hope that helps. And guys, like, honestly, if you are a parent, you know, I have no experience in this, but I'm just saying, like, please be careful. Please make sure you understand. Like, I know we're all just human. I know we all go through our own shit. Just remember that if you have a child, like, if you have a child, like, what you do and what you say and how you treat them, like, is going to stay with them forever. And, you know, try to keep that in mind, because it's like, it's such a responsibility to have. And it's like, again, like I said, I'm not a parent. I'm not trying to tell anyone what to do. I'm just saying, like, I know a lot of people have experienced, like, effects for their whole life because of how they were treated or how they were brought up as a kid. So just, you know, if you're taking on that responsibility, just keep that in mind, because obviously you can completely impact, you know, that being in an absolutely positive and amazing way. But just realize, like, how much power you actually have, and use that in, you know, as best of a way you can. And everyone makes mistakes. Everybody. But yeah, so I just kind of want to address that topic. I hope that helped a little bit. I don't know, there's probably more to say about it, but I just want you guys to, like, realize also that, you know, if there were things in your past, like, you know, with people in your life or your parents or whatever, that impacted you in a negative way, also realize that, you know, they probably didn't want to be that way. You know, they probably didn't want to be miserable or sad or angry, and for whatever reason they got there, and they were going through their own shit, you know. And if you can kind of be forgiving in that way, that's also really helpful. I've found, is, like, just forgive as much as you can. It's like, obviously, you know, there's maybe going to be a part of you that hates people, or just, like, you're never going to really fully heal, but, like, I think you can at least do as much as you can, and try to see it from a broader, less personal perspective of, you know, you're a human being. I don't understand you. I only understand myself. I'm never going to understand you. I don't know why you did those things or why you said those things, but it's done, and you obviously had your own reasons. So detach from it, move on. And I think that's just the best way to try to live, you know. But anyway, so I hope that helped, guys. I really appreciate you listening and tuning in. Like I said, I'm working on this book, and I just want to try to articulate the things that I want to say. So, yeah, cool. So I'm actually going to, by the way, just a little disclaimer, I'm going to be pretty busy the next couple weeks, so I'm actually going to be making a backlog of podcasts. So the next couple podcasts you see will be shot earlier than you see them. So I'm just letting you know. So by that time, the app will probably be live on all the stores. I'll probably have, you know, a little bit more done as far as the new music and everything. But I just want to let you guys know, because I know I always keep them pretty relevant to like what I'm doing. So I just want to let you know they're going to be backlogged for a couple weeks. And yeah, so anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. Make sure to subscribe to me. Follow me on Instagram, SayWeCanFly. If you need advice, if you want to talk, send me a voicemail. Link is below. All my links are below. New music coming. Feature film is coming. Book is coming. So thank you for being patient. You guys are amazing. Stay cozy. Peace.